The Supreme Vantari fleet, led by Grand Marshal Glorbax VII, approached the blue-green planet with absolute confidence. Glorbax, renowned throughout 17 galaxies for his flawless tactical brilliance, at least according to his own memoirs, an impressive collection of conquest trophies, mostly from defenseless or non-existent planets, stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the unstoppable Annihilator. He stroked his 12 tentacles thoughtfully as he gazed at the view screen. This C-47B will make a fine addition to my subjugation record, Glorbax announced to his bridge crew of elite Vantari warriors. Each had been trained to crush all resistance, though they were easily distracted by intergalactic cooking shows and debates about proper tentacle moisturizing techniques. Grand Marshal chirped his information officer, Blurts. The ancient archives mark this planet as insignificant, low-level resources, no threat. Conquest should be complete within one standard rotation. Excellent, Glorbax rumbled, completely ignoring the small notation at the bottom of the report that read local name, Earth, as it seemed thoroughly irrelevant. Prepare the weapons of mass intimidation. The flagship's coffee machine chose that moment to emit a series of alarming beeps before spraying scalding liquid across the strategic planning table. It was the third such malfunction that week, but Glorbax refused to acknowledge any connection between the ship's frequent technical problems and the budget cuts he'd implemented to fund his personal trophy room expansion. Ignore that, he commanded as junior officers scrambled to mop up the mess. Begin the approach. I want maximum terror inflicted upon these primitives. The Supreme Fleet descended toward Z-47B with overwhelming force. The unstoppable Annihilator activated its most fearsome weapon, a massive sound cannon designed to induce maximum dread by broadcasting the most irritating hold music in the universe on repeat. The dissonant melody of Supernova Elevator Classics Volume 7 blared across the stratosphere as Glorbax personally selected a target for the first landing. This region appears mostly deserted on thermal scans, he said, pointing a tentacle at a vast, arid zone. Perfect for establishing our primary dominance perimeter with minimal resistance. What the thermal scans failed to indicate was that this mostly deserted region was the Nevada desert, specifically the outskirts of a small town called Harmony Creek, which was currently hosting its annual UFO festival. As the massive Vantari warships descended through the clouds with thunder and spectacle, the thousands of festival attendees looked up in collective awe. Wow, the organizers really went all out this year, exclaimed a woman wearing a tinfoil hat and Take Me to Your Leader t-shirt. These special effects are incredible. The first wave of Vantari shock troops, clad in formidable battle armor and wielding disintegration rays, descended from their landing craft with precision military formations. They expected screaming, panic, and immediate surrender. Instead, they were greeted by enthusiastic applause and several festival-goers attempting to take selfies with them. Commander Zorp, leader of the ground forces, raised his weapon menacingly and stepped forward to address the gathering crowd. His translator module activated as he prepared to deliver the standard conquest speech that had brought countless civilizations to their knees. Primitive beings of Z-47B. I am Commander Zorp of the Supreme Vantari Fleet. Your planet is now under. Dude, your costume is amazing, interrupted a young man in a green alien suit, complete with googly-eyed headband. The detail on those tentacles. Are they animatronic? Mind if I get a pic with you for my Instagram? Zorp blinked all 7 of his eyes in confusion. This is not a costume. I am your conqueror. Sure thing, buddy, the man laughed, throwing an arm around Zorp's armored shoulders before his friend could snap a photo. Hey, can you point us toward the food trucks? I heard they've got alien-themed tacos this year. While Zorp struggled to extricate himself from the unexpected embrace, his troops attempted to establish a security perimeter. Their efforts were constantly interrupted by festival attendees asking for directions to the bathroom facilities or offering them pamphlets about alien abduction support groups. One of Zorp's lieutenants managed to set up a hovering platform from which the formal surrender demand could be broadcast, But the ceremony was completely drowned out by the twangy sounds of country music blasting from the festival's main stage and the excited shouting from a pie-eating contest taking place nearby. On the flagship, Glorbacks watched the live feed with growing irritation. Why aren't they cowering? Where is the traditional wailing and gnashing of teeth? This is most irregular. Perhaps they don't recognize. Our military might, Grand Marshal, suggested his second-in-command timidly. Impossible. Glorbacks slammed a tentacle on his command console, accidentally activating the ship's windshield wipers. Expand the invasion to other territories immediately. They must learn to fear the Vantari. Following orders, the fleet dispersed to target other regions of the planet. What followed was a cascade of increasingly bizarre encounters as the Vantari forces encountered the chaotic entity known as human civilization. A battalion of troops dispatched to Washington, D.C., intended to seize governmental buildings, but became hopelessly lost in the labyrinthine hallways of the Capitol. After an hour of wandering, they were absorbed into a fifth-grade field trip, with the children assuming the tentacled warriors were part of an interactive educational experience about democracy. And here we have representatives from the Space Committee improvise the flustered tour guide as the heavily armed Vantari followed along, increasingly interested in the children's questions about the Electoral College. Meanwhile, an elite unit tasked with controlling Earth's communications networks found themselves bogged down in an endless morass of firewalls, pop-up advertisements for weight loss pills, and two-factor authentication requests. The Vantari cyber warriors, accustomed to simply overwhelming primitive systems with brute force, were utterly confounded by CAPTCHA tests, asking them to identify traffic lights and crosswalks in grainy images. "I don't even know what a traffic light is," screamed the cyber commander as he smashed his control panel in frustration. A reconnaissance team deployed to gather intelligence on Earth's transportation infrastructure became stranded in Los Angeles traffic for 7 hours. By the time they were extracted, 3 members had purchased overpriced real estate from an opportunistic agent who spotted them in their vehicle, and the team leader had somehow been talked into signing up for comprehensive car insurance by an enthusiastic roadside salesman. The premium is a bit high because, well, you don't have a Earth driver's license or credit history, the salesman had explained cheerfully, but I threw in the Alien Invasion Protection Rider at no extra charge. That's usually a $50 add-on. As the invasion progressed, or rather, failed to progress, the Vantari technology began to malfunction in inexplicable ways. Laser weapons experienced interference from Wi-Fi signals emanating from nearby coffee shops. Automated battle robots powered down unexpectedly after receiving noise complaints from residential neighborhood associations. Hover tanks became stuck in drive-through lanes at fast food restaurants after soldiers developed cravings for Earth nutrition cylinders, otherwise known as burritos. Earth's governmental response to the alien invasion was equally chaotic. Various agencies passed responsibility back and forth like a hot potato. A press conference was hastily arranged, but derailed when discussion turned to who had stolen someone's sandwich from the break room refrigerator. An internal memo was leaked advising citizens to remain calm and perhaps consider stocking up on toilet paper, just in case. As days passed, the Vantari troops began to experience increasing exposure to Earth culture. Discovery of the Internet proved particularly problematic for invasion discipline. Soldiers meant to be monitoring strategic positions were instead watching cat videos and attempting viral dance challenges. The ship's nutritionist reported widespread addiction to fast food, particularly something called extra spicy chicken nuggets, which produced euphoric reactions in Vantari physiology. Reality television proved especially confusing to the alien invaders. A squad of elite commandos became so invested in a competitive baking show that they abandoned their post to argue about whether a contestant's souffle deserved to be eliminated. Commander Zorp himself developed an obsession with understanding American football rules, spending hours watching game footage and drawing up complex diagrams that made less sense the more he worked on them. The spheroid is advanced by carrying, yet sometimes it is kicked, and points are awarded differently depending on how it crosses the line. There must be a deeper strategic significance I'm missing, he muttered as he reviewed plays for the 12th straight hour. On the flagship, Glorbax grew increasingly furious and bewildered. He ordered intensified attacks, but his commands often faced delays due to system errors or because communications officers were busy watching the finale of a singing competition. His personal assistant dared to suggest that perhaps they should research Earth culture more thoroughly before proceeding. But Glorbax dismissed this as unnecessary coddling of an obviously inferior species. They drive vehicles powered by exploding liquid. They communicate by pressing tiny buttons with their thumbs. Their currency is literally paper with pictures on it. These cannot be formidable opponents, he ranted, while behind him, the ship's navigation officer was surreptitiously ordering Earth sneakers online using the fleet credit authorization code. 3 weeks into what was supposed to be a one-day conquest, the Vantari presence had become something approaching normalcy in many locations. Humans began interacting with the aliens in increasingly peculiar ways. In a suburban neighborhood in Ohio, a group of battle-hardened soldiers found themselves recruited by a local gardening club to help move heavy planters because they looked strong. Too confused to refuse, the warriors spent an afternoon arranging decorative shrubs while being lectured about proper mulching techniques by enthusiastic retirees who afterward insisted they stay for lemonade and cookies. "You simply must try Gladys's snickerdoodles," said the club president, patting a befuddled soldier's tentacle. They won the county fair 3 years running. The Vantari stealth technology, capable of evading the most advanced detection systems in the galaxy, proved useless against an elderly woman in New Mexico who claimed she could see right through that nonsense and invited the cloaked reconnaissance team in for tea. By the end of the afternoon, she had them fixing her porch swing and showing her how to set up a video call with her grandchildren. Earth scientists attempted to study Vantari technology, but seemed more interested in practical applications than understanding the fundamental principles. A team of physicists from MIT spent 3 days examining a captured propulsion system only to ask if they could borrow the energy converter thingy to power a high-capacity blender for their laboratory smoothie bar. The commercialization of the alien invasion began almost immediately. T-shirts reading, "I survived the Vantari invasion, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt," became popular street vendor items. Tourism companies started offering alien spotting tours at a safe distance, box lunch included. A fast food chain introduced the Invader Burger, featuring green-tinted buns and an uncomfortable number of tentacle-shaped pickles. Meanwhile, the Vantari crew became increasingly Earthified. Many secretly began learning English through dating apps, causing a strange pidgin language to develop among the ranks. The chief engineer discovered a passion for jazz music and attempted to modify the ship's engines to produce a smoother rhythm. The medical officer began dispensing lifestyle advice based on health magazines found in a dentist's waiting room. "You should really be getting 8 hours of sleep and eating more leafy greens," he advised Glorbax during a routine physical, causing the Grand Marshal to throw a stapler at him. Glorbax, determined to reassert control, decided to broadcast a powerful speech to the entire planet, demonstrating Vantari superiority and demanding submission. The communications team spent days preparing the perfect transmission that would override all Earth broadcasts simultaneously. When the moment came, Glorbax stood majestically before the camera, his ceremonial conquest robes gleaming with medals from previous subjugations. He began his carefully rehearsed address. "People of Z-47b, I am Grand Marshal Glorbax 7 of the Supreme Vantari Fleet. Your pitiful resistance ends now. You will submit to..." The global broadcast was suddenly hijacked by a group of teenagers who had been live-streaming a video game tournament. Glorbax's stern face was replaced by split-screen footage of players shouting excitedly about graphics and something called spawn camping. When the Vantari technicians finally restored the connection, the damage to their intimidation effort was irreparable. Later that evening, while nursing his wounded pride with a bottle of engine lubricant, which he mistook for Vantari spirits, Glorbax accidentally caught a news broadcast referring to Earth's unusual visitors. He froze mid-sip. "Computer," he croaked. "What is the local name of planet Z?" 47b. "Local designation, Earth," replied the computer cheerfully. The realization hit him like a meteor strike. They had invaded Earth. The Earth, the planet that had been flagged in ancient Vantari warning archives with special notices that Glorbax had completely ignored in his conquest fervor. Warnings that now came flooding back to his memory. Approach with extreme caution. Bewildering cultural complexity. Resistant to logical processes. Warning, bureaucracy levels exceed safety parameters. The shock and embarrassment caused Glorbax to drain the entire bottle of lubricant, resulting in an unfortunate series of mechanical bodily functions and an emergency visit to the medical bay. Upon recovering, Glorbax decided to change tactics. If destruction wouldn't work, he would conquer by imposing Vantari order and efficiency on Earth's chaos. This would surely demonstrate the superiority of their civilization and bring the humans to heel. His first attempt involved introducing the Vantari currency system to replace Earth's inefficient monetary hodgepodge. The fleet's economic officer proudly presented their universal credit units to major Earth banks, only to be politely informed that they couldn't be accepted without a valid SWIFT code. When they attempted to establish one, they were handed a stack of forms concerning asset origin declarations, anti-money laundering compliance, and tax identification numbers that stood taller than the average Vantari. "But we're your conquerors," protested the economic officer to the impassive bank manager. "Yes, and we're very impressed by that," replied the banker. "But regulations are regulations. Perhaps you'd like to open a basic checking account to start? There's a $50 minimum deposit and a monthly maintenance fee unless you set up direct deposit." Next, Glorbax ordered the implementation of an efficient transportation system to replace Earth's congested roadways. The engineering corps designed a network of aerial highways that would allow for frictionless movement of people and goods. Their efforts were immediately stymied by building permits, urban planning regulations, environmental impact assessments, and protests from local residents opposing the unsightly sky roads that would block their views and decrease property values. A community meeting about the proposed aerial highway turned into a 4-hour ordeal during which the Vantari engineers were lectured about watershed protection, historic preservation, and the mating habits of an endangered species of beetle that apparently held veto power over all infrastructure projects. In a desperate bid for official recognition, Glorbax attempted to register the Vantari fleet as a formal organization on Earth. This led to requirements for business registration numbers, tax identification codes, health and safety certifications for the ship's cafeteria, and proof of public liability insurance coverage. "Why would we need insurance against public liability? We're invading you," Glorbax shouted at the bureaucrat behind the counter. "All the more reason," the woman replied calmly, sliding another form across the desk. "And since you're employing personnel on Earth, you'll need to fill out these I-9 forms, set up workers' compensation insurance, and establish a retirement plan that meets ERISA guidelines." It was becoming clear that Earth's ultimate weapon was not military might, but bureaucracy, administrative procedures, and legal paperwork. Vantari soldiers found themselves mired in visa applications, work permits for invasion-related activities, and attendance at public planning hearings that somehow extended well past midnight without ever reaching a definitive conclusion. Commander Zorp, once the fearsome leader of ground forces, was summoned to traffic court for illegally parking his shuttle in a loading zone. He was sentenced to complete an online traffic safety course, which he failed twice due to confusion over right-of-way rules at four-way stops. The fleet's computer systems came under constant assault, not from military cyber attacks, but from phishing emails claiming you've won an interstellar cruise and password reset requests from services they had never signed up for. The security officer spent 3 days trying to remove malware after a junior navigator clicked on a flashing advertisement promising hot singles in the Andromeda Galaxy want to meet you. Glorbax himself spent most of his time trying to understand the terms and conditions of a free antivirus software license that had somehow self-installed on the main command system. The 147-page agreement, written in microscopic legal text, contained so many subclauses and exceptions that even the ship's advanced translation algorithms struggled to make sense of it. After 6 weeks of bureaucratic warfare, Glorbax was exhausted. His once gleaming tentacles had lost their luster, his conquest medals remained unpolished, and he had developed an eye twitch whenever anyone mentioned form submission deadlines or processing fees. The harsh truth was becoming unavoidable. Earth couldn't be conquered. It could only drive you mad or assimilate you. An unofficial peace negotiation took place, not between diplomats, but between Glorbax and an insurance salesperson named Brenda, who had somehow gained access to the ship in an attempt to sell him an interplanetary life insurance policy. The discussion primarily revolved around the benefits of adding a black hole accident rider to the basic coverage. Now, your species is 7 hearts, correct? That would affect your premium calculation, Brenda explained, tapping at her calculator while Glorbax stared in defeated fascination. And do you currently have any pre-existing conditions? Cosmic radiation exposure counts, by the way. By the end of the 3-hour meeting, the Brenda Treaty had been signed on a napkin, essentially allowing the Vantari to remain on Earth provided they complied with local laws, though nobody fully understood all of them, paid taxes if they could figure out how, and occasionally helped with community service, such as judging high school talent shows or volunteering at animal shelters. The Supreme Vantari Fleet officially ended its invasion operations. Many soldiers chose to stay, integrating into Earth society in peculiar ways. A group of engineers opened restaurants serving authentic Vantari cuisine, mostly nutrient gel that tasted suspiciously like cardboard. Several warriors became yoga instructors due to their natural flexibility. Commander Zorp, still fascinated by Earth sports, secured a position as an enthusiastic but frequently incorrect sports commentator. And he throws the ball through the basket for what I believe humans call a hole-in-one, he would exclaim during basketball games, to the amusement of viewers who made drinking games based on his mistakes. The flagship Unstoppable Annihilator was converted into a space-themed casino/hotel, with Glorbax serving as the reluctant manager, frequently dealing with complaints about room service and malfunctioning slot machines. He discovered a talent for creating exotic cocktails, combining Earth spirits with harmless, to humans, Vantari biochemical compounds to produce drinks with names like Galactic Meltdown and Invasion Failure. The Galactic Dominion back home received a final report from Glorbax, a confusing packet containing incomplete tax forms, utility bills, and a handwritten note. Stay away from this place. They have lawyers. The Dominion decided to erase Z47b/Earth from all galactic maps for complicated administrative reasons. Earth continued its chaotic daily existence, now with an added sprinkle of alien flavor. In Harmony Creek, the annual UFO festival expanded to include Authentic Alien Day, where the remaining Vantari would demonstrate their technology and customs to enthusiastic tourists. The former invasion became a footnote in human history, filed somewhere between unexplained phenomena and cultural exchange programs. Years later, a documentary filmmaker asked Glorbax if he regretted the failed invasion. "Regret implies I had a choice," he replied, mixing a galactic meltdown for a customer. You don't conquer Earth. Either it drives you away, or it absorbs you until you're arguing about sports teams and complaining about taxes like everyone else. He pushed the bright blue drink across the bar. Besides, your chicken wings are better than anything in 17 galaxies. Some defeats taste sweeter than victory. As for the humans, most went about their lives as they always had, adaptable, confusing, and utterly convinced that they were the most logical species in the universe, despite all evidence to the contrary. Occasionally, someone would look up at the converted warship hovering above Nevada and wonder how different things might have been if the aliens had been more organized or less susceptible to bureaucratic quagmires. But mostly, they just wanted to know if there was a discount on room rates during the off-season and whether the hotel had a pool. Meanwhile, in the vastness of space, Any approaching alien fleets that picked up Earth on their scanners would also detect the universal warning beacon now broadcasting on all frequencies. Caution. Excessive paperwork ahead. Management not responsible for mental breakdowns, identity crises, or sudden career changes to yoga instruction. Most heeded the warning. Those who didn't inevitably found themselves filling out forms in triplicate and trying to understand property tax assessments, wondering where their conquest went so terribly wrong. In a quiet moment on the anniversary of the invasion, Commander Zorp, now the host of a popular cooking show called Tentacles in the Kitchen, raised a glass to the stars. To Earth, he said to no one in particular, the only planet that defeats you by making you fall in love with its nonsense. Somewhere in a filing cabinet in Washington, D.C., the official report on the Vantari invasion gathered dust, classified under miscellaneous foreign visitors and marked resolution pending further paperwork. It would remain there indefinitely, much like the Vantari themselves, neither fully conquered nor conquerors, but permanent residents of the strange blue planet that bureaucracy built.